Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Cat Tales, a Warrior Cats Reread podcast. My name is Coffee, I'm your host, and today we will be reading chapters 12 through 15 of The Darkest Hour. Now, where we last left off, Firestar is about to head to the gathering, and he's very wary of what Tigerstar might do. He believes that Tigerstar will out Stonefur and Mistyfoot as half-clan because they're Bluestar's kits. And he also believes that Tigerstar will ask, or rather demand, for his kits back, Bramblepaw and Tawnypaw. We're going to get right into it with chapter 12, quote, Firestar paused at the top of the hollow before leading his cats down to the gathering. The night was still. Clouds were building up on the horizon, so that Firestar had begun to wonder if StarClan was going to hide the moon to show that it was not their will for the gathering to take place. But for now the moon rose high above the clouds, and the Son of Cats drifted up to Firestar from the hollow below. Only WindClan so far, murmured Graystripe, who was crouched at Firestar's shoulder. What's keeping the others? Firestar shrugged. StarClan knows. Personally, I wouldn't care if Tigerstar never showed up. He signaled with his tail and led his warriors as they raced down through the bushes and into the clearing at the center of the hollow. As Graystripe had said, only WindClan cats were there. Firestar spotted their leader, Tallstar, seated with his deputy, Deadfoot, near the base of the great rock. Greetings, Firestar, Tallstar mewed, dipping his head courteously as Firestar approached. Tornir told me he met you on your way to Highstones. We grieve for Bluestar. So do her own clan, Firestar responded, bowing his head in turn. She was a noble leader. But you will be a worthy successor, meowed the black and white Tom, surprising Firestar by the warmth of his tone. You've served your clan well. I hope to serve it even better in future, Firestar stammered. Tallstar nods at him again and takes his place on the great rock. Firestar glances around to see his clan and WindClan talking pleasantly, relieved that they at least get along with one clan. He waves his tail to One Whisker and Gorsepaw as he jumps up beside Tallstar. He's still not used to looking down on so many cats. He feels tense in anticipation of interacting with Tigerstar again. Quote, ShadowClan and RiverClan are late, he remarked. Tallstar twitched his ears in agreement. Clouds threaten the moon, he pointed out. A trace of anxiety crossed his face. Perhaps StarClan is angry. Looking up, Firestar saw that the clouds he had noticed earlier were spreading farther across the sky. The air tasted damp, and his fur prickled with expectation. What would it mean, Firestar wondered, if StarClan veiled the moon and Tigerstar was left to plot in secret until the next gathering? Tallstar, he began, deciding that the time had come to confide in the WindClan leader and ask for his advice. I'm worried about what Tigerstar might be planning. He never finished. A triumphant yowling from the top of the hollow interrupted him, and a heartbeat later more cats raced into the clearing as ShadowClan and RiverClan arrived together, their cats fanning out below him. Tigerstar reached the top of the great rock in a single bound, and Leopardstar scrambled up beside him. Cats of all clans, Tigerstar declared, not waiting to greet Tallstar and Firestar or discuss which of the leaders should speak first. I have news for you. Listen well, for great change is coming to the forest. Okay, rude. Firestar stared at the ShadowClan leader in confusion. When Tigerstar first mentioned news, he had thought for a moment he was referring to Mistyfoot and Stonefur's half-clan heritage. Yet that would not merit such a spectacular arrival or make Tigerstar talk about great change. Below them in the clearing there was dead silence. All the cats stared up at the great rock, their eyes wide as they waited for Tigerstar to explain. Every hair on Firestar's pelt began to bristle, and he did not know whether it was due to the tension of the assembled warriors or the threatening rain clouds. Great change, Tigerstar repeated, and StarClan has shown me that it is ShadowClan's task to prepare every cat in the forest to meet it. Every cat? Firestar heard the quiet mutter from Tallstar. The WindClan leader took a step forward. Tigerstar, ShadowClan has the favor of StarClan. Tigerstar swept on, ignoring the interruption. We are blessed because we survived the sickness, and I have received the blessing of our warrior ancestors most of all because it was my task to restore the clan and make it great again. There he goes again with the Trumpisms. Oh yes, Firestar thought. He refused to believe that StarClan were showing favor to Tigerstar after all that he had done to his birth clan. Glancing down into the clearing, he looked for Running Nose. The ShadowClan Medicine Cat had done his best to support his clan during Nightstar's ill-fated leadership, and Firestar had an idea that he was not entirely happy with Tigerstar as the old Tom's replacement. He wondered what Running Nose thought of the announcement Tigerstar had just made, but though his gaze searched the clearing carefully, he could see no sign of the Medicine Cat. Left at home, Firestar asked himself, so he can't deny what Tigerstar claims? At the same time, he couldn't help noticing that Stonefur was also missing, and he wondered if the RiverClan deputy was in more trouble because of his half-clan parentage, and what he thought about his leader's decision to ally her clan with Tigerstar. One cat Firestar did spot in the clearing below was Darkstripe. The former ThunderClan warrior was sitting beside Blackfoot, the ShadowClan deputy, and his eyes shone with admiration as he looked up at Tigerstar. It was clear that he had gone straight to his old ally after being driven out of ThunderClan. Well, he wasted no time at all. He don't gaff. All of you know, Tigerstar went on, that changes have already come to us. Unwelcome changes beyond our control. Last Leaf Bear, much of the forest was covered by floods. A fire swept through ThunderClan territory. As he mentioned the fire, he flashed a look at Firestar, who would have liked to claw the arrogance off his enemy's battle-scarred face. Two legs are moving into our territory in ever greater numbers. Life is growing harder, and as the forest changes around us, we must change to meet the crisis. Yowls of support rose from below, though Firestar noticed that they came only from ShadowClan and RiverClan cats. The warriors of ThunderClan and WindClan were exchanging stunned glances, as if they couldn't work out what Tigerstar was trying to say. Firestar felt just as shocked. He had been so certain that Tigerstar would reveal Mistyfoot and Stonefur's secret at this gathering, and demand his own kits, Bramblepaw and Tawnypaw, from ThunderClan. Firestar had braced himself, but now he was left to face a completely different challenge. StarClan have shown me the way, Tigerstar meowed with a glance at the sky, where the storm clouds were massing more thickly still. To survive the hardship ahead of us, we must join together. As four clans, we waste our energies in striving against each other. As one, we would be strong. We must unite. Well, he's trying to start a cult. Total silence met his words. Firestar could hear a faint breeze stirring the leafless branches of the 4 oak trees, and in the distance a mutter of thunder. He gaped at Tigerstar. A single clan in the forest, when StarClan had always decreed that there should be 4? Leopardstar has already agreed to join RiverClan with ShadowClan, Tigerstar told them. We shall be joint leaders of a greater clan, to be known as TigerClan. What a narcissist. Joint leaders? Firestar didn't believe that for a moment. Tigerstar would never share his leadership with any cat. Now Tigerstar turned to Firestar and Tallstar. We have come to invite you to join the new clan, he meowed, his amber eyes glittering. Let us rule the forest together in friendship and peace. Before he had finished speaking, Tallstar stepped forward, his fur bristling aggressively. But it was not to Tigerstar that he spoke. Instead, he addressed all the cats in the clearing below. TigerClan was the name of one of the great clans of ancient times. Tallstar's voice rang out as strong and clear as if he were still a young cat. Tigerstar has no right to use it now, nor does he have the right to change the number of clans in the forest. We have lived as 4 clans for innumerable seasons, following the warrior code laid down for us by StarClan. To throw aside our ancient ways would bring disaster. Turning to Tigerstar, he hissed, I'll die before I join my clan to yours. Tigerstar blinked slowly. Firestar could see a dangerous gleam in his eyes, but his voice was calm as he replied. Tallstar, I understand. These are important matters, and an older cat like yourself will need time to see that what I'm suggesting is for the good of all our clans. I'm not so old I've lost my wits, you piece of fox dung, Tallstar snarled. I love him. Clock that T. Tigerstar flattened his ears, but he kept his temper. And what does the new leader of ThunderClan think? He sneered. All the hatred he had ever felt toward the flame-colored warrior was contained in those words, and even the air felt scorched. Firestar's veins throbbed as though they were filled with ice as he imagined the future. His territory and Tallstar's lay between Tigerstars and Leopardstars. With ShadowClan and RiverClan in alliance, the 2 remaining clans could be crushed between them. Glancing down, Firestar saw unease spread among the ThunderClan and WindClan warriors. Sandstorm was on her paws, yowling, Never, Firestar! Never! But some of the WindClan cats were talking urgently to each other, as if they were considering Tigerstar's proposition. The Dark Tabby warrior had been clever, Firestar realized. Much of what he had said was true. Times were growing harder, for all the reasons he had given. Maybe some cats would believe their problems could be solved by joining together as one clan. But Firestar was convinced that the cats of the forest could fulfill their destiny only if there were 4 clans. And even if he had considered for one moment the idea of joining together as one, he would have rejected it if Tigerstar was to be the new clan's leader. Well, Firestar, Tigerstar rumbled, with another swift glance at the storm-dark sky. Have you lost your tongue? Firestar took a couple of paces that brought him to Tallstar's side. I'll never let you take over my clan, he spat at Tigerstar. Make us, Tallstar invited. If you can. Make you? Tigerstar's amber eyes widened. For a heartbeat, he looked almost genuinely hurt. I came here in peace, with a plan to help us all. Tallstar, Firestar, I want you to recognize that this is the right decision and come to me willingly. But don't delay too long, he added, a hint of menace in his voice. StarClan will not wait forever. Fury blazed up in Firestar. How dared Tigerstar claim that his attempt to take over the whole forest was the will of StarClan? Spinning around, he turned his back on the ShadowClan leader and paced to the front of the rock, where he could look down on all the assembled cats. The time had come for him to speak. When he had finished, Tigerstar would be revealed for what he was, a murderer who had waded through the blood of countless cats to get what he wanted. Let Leopardstar see the kind of cat she had trusted. Cats of WindClan, RiverClan, and ShadowClan, Firestar yelled. I can stay silent no longer. You cannot trust Tigerstar any more than you would trust a cornered badger. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a swift movement from Tigerstar, a bunching of muscles under the rippling tabby pelt. But then the ShadowClan leader glanced at the sky again, controlled himself, and went on listening with a look of deliberate indifference. I know many of you must have wondered why Tigerstar left ThunderClan, Firestar went on. You want to know the truth? This cat is power-hungry and dangerous, and he is willing to murder other cats to get what he wants. He broke off as lightning stabbed down from the sky, a blazing claw of white fire that raked the forest. Thunder crashed overhead, drowning Firestar's words. It sounded as if the great rock itself were being torn up. A sign! A sign! Tigerstar yelled. He gazed up at the sky, his yellow eyes glowing in the light of the moon that still shone between the gathering clouds. I thank you, StarClan, for showing us your will. The gathering is over. Calling a command to his cats to follow him, he bunched his muscles to leap down from the great rock. Before he sprang, he turned his head, eyes narrowed with hatred. Bad luck, kitty pet, he spat. Think about my offer. It's your last chance to save those miserable cats. How convenient that the storm breaks right as Firestar is about to reveal the truth. Can't have anything. Tigerstar jumps down and gathers his clan before Firestar can respond. Leopardstar following suit. Firestar and Tallstar look at each other, shocked. It starts pouring rain, so Firestar quickly gathers his clan and runs into the bushes, sheltering with Graystripe and Sandstorm. Tallstar had not followed. It's pouring hard, but it still isn't as chaotic as the inside of Firestar's mind. Quote, I can't believe this, he meowed, raising his voice above the howling wind. I didn't think even Tigerstar would dare to claim power all over the forest. But what can we do about it? Asked Graystripe. You didn't get to tell the truth about Tigerstar. It's not Firestar's fault that the storm broke, Sandstorm pointed out, her hackles rising. Too late to worry about it, Firestar told them. That prey's killed and eaten now. We have to decide what we do next. What is there to decide? Snarled Sandstorm. The light of battle shone in her green eyes. We fight, of course, until we've driven that piece of crow food out of the forest for good. Firestar nodded. Though he said nothing, he couldn't help thinking of Bluestar's prophecy during his dream at the Moonstone. 4 will become 2. Lion and Tiger will meet in battle. Tiger must mean the new Tiger clan, but who or what is Lion? Firestar pushed the question aside as he remembered Bluestar's ominous parting words. Blood will rule the forest. Yeah, I wonder what the lion part is. That is the end of chapter 12. Wow, Tigerstar is starting a cult. Disappointed but not surprised. Getting into chapter 13. The storm didn't last long. Firestar leads his clan back to camp, every twig and leaf dripping from the rain. He worries if Tigerstar sent warriors to invade the camp in order to force Firestar to join TigerClan, but to his relief, the camp is peaceful as they return. Quote, Whitestorm got up from sentry duty outside the warrior's den and patted over. You're back early. I wondered if those storm clouds would cover the moon. Yes, but it was worse than that, Firestar replied. Worse? Whitestorm's eyes widened in astonishment as Firestar told him what had happened at the gathering just before thunder and lightning prevented his revealing words. More cats joined them, and Firestar was aware of shocked mews as his clan learned what Tigerstar was planning. When the storm broke, Firestar finished. Tigerstar said it was a sign from StarClan that he had their favor. He and Leopardstar left, so the gathering broke up. It might well have been a sign, mewed Whitestorm thoughtfully, but one that shows StarClan are angry with Tigerstar. Cinderpelt, what do you think? Firestar asked the medicine cat, who had listened to the story with deep foreboding in her blue eyes. I don't know, she admitted. If it was a sign, it would mean StarClan stopped you from telling the truth about Tigerstar, and I find that hard to believe. She shrugged. There are times when a storm is just a storm. It was an unlucky one for ThunderClan then, muttered Longtail. I wish I'd been there, Cloudtail growled. I'd have torn Tigerstar's throat out, no more problem. In that case, it's a good thing you weren't there, Firestar retorted. Attacking a clan leader at a gathering? That would have made StarClan angry. Cloudtail narrowed his eyes at Firestar, the challenge clear in his blue gaze. Why don't StarClan do something to help us then if they're so powerful? I'm saying, bro. Maybe they will, Brightheart suggested gently. So what are we going to do? Asked Mousefur. She was shifting from paw to paw as if she wanted to race out of camp and confront her enemies right away. You're not thinking of joining this Tiger clan, are you? Never, Firestar assured her. But we need time to think and rest. He yawned and stretched. For now, we'll need extra patrols. Any volunteers to go out at dawn? I will, Mousefur offered instantly. Thanks, meowed Firestar. Keep a lookout along the border with ShadowClan. And if you come across any of Tigerstar's warriors, you know what to do. Oh, yes. Cloudtail lashed his tail eagerly. I'll come with you, Mousefur. I could do with some ShadowClan fur to line my nest. Firestar didn't try to check the young warrior's hostility. No cat could doubt Cloudtail's loyalty to ThunderClan, however scornful he was about StarClan and the warrior code. Whitestorm named Brackenfur and Thornclaw to join the patrol as well, and all 4 cats padded off to get some rest before dawn. One by one, the other clans headed for their dens. Firestar was aware of their shock and the fear they did not quite succeed in hiding. Eventually, he was left alone with only Cinderpelt by his side. He let out a long sigh. Will there ever be any end to this? He murmured. Cinderpelt pressed her muzzle comfortingly against his. I don't know. It's in the paws of StarClan. She narrowed her eyes. But sometimes I don't believe there will be any peace in the forest until Tigerstar is dead. I mean, he's literally causing all the problems, so yes. Right, Firestar meowed. Attack me. A few fox lengths away, Bramblepaw crouched on the floor of the hollow. Firestar waited as the apprentice began to creep toward him, his amber eyes darting from side to side as if he was choosing the best place to strike. A heartbeat later, Bramblepaw launched himself into the air, but Firestar was ready for him. Slipping rapidly to one side, he butted Bramblepaw in the flank as he came down, and the young cat lost his balance and rolled over, his paws scuffing up dust. You'll have to be quicker than that, Firestar told him. Don't give your enemy time to think. Bramblepaw scrambled up, spitting out sand, and immediately sprang again. His outstretched paws caught Firestar on the side of the head, thrusting the older cat sideways so that his paws slid out from under him. Bramblepaw held him down, his nose almost touching Firestar's. Like that? He asked. Firestar pushed him off. Let me up, you great lump. Shaking sand out of his pelt, he added. Yes, just like that. You're shaping up well, Bramblepaw. The apprentice's eyes glowed, and Firestar suddenly felt as if he were looking at a young Tigerstar. But this was Tigerstar as he should have been. Strong, skillful, brave, and yes, ambitious. But in Bramblepaw, all the ambition seemed to be focused on becoming the best warrior that he could be in the service of his clan. Finally, he's being normal about Bramblepaw. Firestar couldn't resist letting out a purr of satisfaction. Amid all the troubles that beset ThunderClan, it was a relief to escape for a short time for a training session with his apprentice. But Bramblepaw's next words reminded him of his weightier responsibilities. Firestar, I wanted to ask you, why does every cat think it would be bad to be part of TigerClan? What? Firestar felt a surge of anger. He could hardly believe his apprentice had asked the question. Bramblepaw flinched, but he went on, steadily meeting his mentor's eyes. Ashpaw told me what Tigerstar said. It's true that times are hard. Every cat's always complaining about the shortage of prey and how there are more two-legs in the forest than ever before. Besides, TigerClan will be the strongest clan in the forest if RiverClan joins with ShadowClan. Wouldn't it make sense to join them? Firestar took a deep breath. After all, he had asked questions like these when he first came to the forest, not understanding why there should be rivalry and battle between the clans. He sat down beside Bramblepaw. It's not as simple as that, he meowed. For one thing, there have always been 4 clans in the forest. For another, it would mean the end of ThunderClan. Why? Because we cannot believe Tigerstar when he says the 4 leaders would rule jointly. Firestar tried to speak gently, remembering he was talking about the young cat's father, but there was no hiding the stark truth. Tigerstar would take control. We would lose everything that makes us ThunderClan. For a few heartbeats, Bramblepaw was silent. Then he meowed. I see. Thank you, Firestar. That's what I wanted to know. Then let's get on. Firestar sprang to his paws. There's a move I think you might find useful. But as he continued with the training session, he found that his optimism about Bramblepaw's loyalties had started to fade. Bramblepaw's asking a valid question. This is one of the questions that Firestar would have asked as an apprentice. I think he literally asked, why don't all 4 clans live together? So, he's just taking any excuse to be kind of bigoted, and it's getting annoying. So when they get back from patrol, Cloudtail and Brightheart want to show him the battle moves they've been working on. Firestar agrees, wanting to support Brightheart because she seems a lot happier and confident since her name change. Quote, Cloudtail and Brightheart ran into the middle of the hollow. For a few heartbeats, they prowled around each other. Then Cloudtail darted in and gave Brightheart a couple of blows with sheathed paws on the blind side of her head. Brightheart rolled with the impact, and Firestar tensed, imagining the damage an enemy cat might have done with his claws out and all the strength behind the blow. But instead of rolling away from Cloudtail, Brightheart propelled herself toward him, tangling her paws with his and throwing him off balance. Firestar pricked his ears with interest as the 2 cats writhed together on the ground, and suddenly Brightheart was on top, pinning Cloudtail down with one paw on his neck. I've never seen that before, Firestar meowed, patting over to join them as Brightheart released Cloudtail and the young white warrior jumped up and shook sand out of his pelt. Brightheart, try it on me. Looking nervous, Brightheart faced him. Firestar found it harder than he had expected to come up on her blind side. The young she-cat kept weaving back and forth so that he had to change his position. When at last he leaped at her, she slid under his outstretched paws and tripped him in the same way that she had surprised Cloudtail. For a few heartbeats, they wrestled together until at last Firestar managed to hold her down. Harder than it looks, isn't it? Meowed Cloudtail, strolling up beside them with a delighted expression. It certainly is. Well done, Brightheart. Firestar let the she-cat get up. Her uninjured eye was shining at his praise. For the first time, he began to wonder if she had a future as a warrior after all. Keep practicing, he told her, and let me watch you again soon. I think you might have something to teach the clan. It would be so peak if Brightheart becomes a warrior. Time passes and the weather turns cold again. Frost is on the grass and prey is very scarce. Firestar is on patrol with Graystripe, Longtail, and Thornclaw. Graystripe complains that he's so hungry he'll fade into a shadow. That's a new one, but also so real. Firestar tells them he's going to try hunting by the stream. He can barely scent any prey, growing worried about facing TigerClan if his own clan isn't strong enough. Quote, his paw steps led him by instinct down toward the stream, and he crouched down to drink, prodding the thin ice at the very edge and shaking icy drops off his paw when it gave way. As Firestar bent his head to lap from the stream, the sun came out behind him, striking through the leaves. Light dazzled on the water and surrounded Firestar's reflection with golden rays. For a moment, the image of his head disappeared, to be replaced by that of a roaring lion. It was the beast Firestar had heard described in so many elders' tales, his flame-colored pelt blazing into a luxuriant mane, his eyes shining with unlimited strength and power. Startled, Firestar leaped backward. He let out a yowl as he collided with a tree and stumbled into the dead leaves among its roots. When he looked up, Spotted Leaf was facing him from across the stream. The beautiful tortoiseshell's eyes were brimming with amusement, and she let out a little meow of laughter. "Spotted Leaf!" Firestar gasped. She had never come to him before when he was awake, and he wondered what this might mean. He sprang to his paws, ready to splash through the stream to her side, but she signaled with her tail for him to stay where he was. "Take heed of what you have seen, Firestar," she told him, her amusement vanishing like the frost at dawn. "Learn what you must be." "What do you mean?" Firestar asked urgently. But as she finished speaking, Spotted Leaf began to fade. Her eyes rested on him, filled with love, and her body paled until Firestar could see the bank of the stream through it. "Spotted Leaf, don't leave me yet," he begged. "I need you." But her eyes shone for a heartbeat longer, and then she was gone. He's literally so pathetic. He's the definition of a simp, and it's not cute. Like, is this ever going to not be a thing anymore? It's been 6 books. "Firestar." It was Graystripe's voice. Firestar shook his head to clear it and turned to face his friend as he came padding down the bank. "Are you okay?" Graystripe asked. "You yowled loud enough to scare all the prey between here and 4 trees. "I'm fine," Firestar replied. "Something startled me, that's all." Graystripe examined him for a moment longer, as if he wasn't quite satisfied with his leader's explanation, and then turned away. "If you say so," he meowed, retreating up the bank. "Come and see the rabbit Longtail caught. It's as big as a fox." Firestar stayed where he was. He was still trembling from the shock of his vision. He had seen himself like one of the great warriors of old, a member of RiverClan. Bluestar's prophecy echoed in his head again. Lion and Tiger will meet in battle. Did this mean that a new clan, RiverClan, would arise to combat TigerClan? And did StarClan intend Firestar to lead it? That's the end of chapter 13. The lion does not concern himself with starting a cult. Chapter 14. Quote, "Firestar," meowed Graystripe. "I want to ask you something." Firestar was crouching by the nettle patch. He had just seen Brackenford leaving at the head of the evening patrol, and now he was eating his share of fresh kill before rounding up a patrol of his own for an extra check on the ShadowClan border. "Sure," he replied. "What is it?" Graystripe crouched beside him, but before he could speak, Tawny Paw came stalking out of the Elder's Den, her head and her tail held high as she headed for the gorse tunnel. Her amber eyes blazed with anger. Bramblepaw emerged behind her, his jaws clamped on a bundle of bedding moss. He looked worried. "Tawny Paw," Firestar called. "What's the matter?" For a heartbeat, he thought the apprentice was going to ignore him. Then she veered sharply to stand in front of him. "Small Ear," she spat. "If ever a cat asks to have his fur clawed off—" "You shouldn't talk like that about an elder," Firestar rebuked her. "Small Ear's given good service to the clan, and we should respect that." "What about a bit of respect for me?" Tawny Paw was so furious she seemed to have forgotten she was talking to her leader. "Just because I was a little late going to clear out the old bedding, Small Ear said that Tigerstar had never wanted to serve the elders either, and he could see I was going to turn out just like my father." She scraped her claws on the sandy floor of the clearing as if she were picturing the old Tom's fur. "It's not the first time he said things either. I don't see why I should have to put up with it." Honestly, as she should. Valid reaction. While she was speaking, Bramblepaw had come to join them, putting down the moss he was carrying. "You know Small Ear's joints are aching because of the cold weather," he meowed. "You're not my mentor," Tawny Paw flared up at her brother. "Don't tell me what to do." "Calm down, Tawny Paw," Firestar mewed. He wanted to reassure her that no cat believed she would end up a murderer and a traitor like her father, but he knew that wasn't entirely true. "You're doing very well as an apprentice, and you're going to make a great warrior. Sooner or later, the clan will see that." "That's what I've been telling her," Bramblepaw meowed, and added to his sister. "We've got to live down what Tigerstar did. That's the only way the clan will believe in our loyalty." "Some cats believe it already," Graystripe put in, and Bramblepaw flashed him a grateful glance. The worst of Tawny Paw's fury was fading, though her amber eyes still burned. With a toss of her head, she turned away, flinging her parting words over her shoulder as she stalked toward the gorse tunnel. "I'm going to fetch some fresh moss." "I'm sorry, Firestar," Bramblepaw murmured when she had gone. "But Tawny Paw's right to be upset." "I know," Firestar reassured him. "If I can catch Small Ear at a good moment, I'll have a word with him." "Thanks, Firestar." Bramblepaw dipped his head in gratitude, picked up his moss, and hurried after his sister. Firestar gazed worriedly after the 2 apprentices. He must talk to Small Ear, he decided, and soon. Constantly taunting the young cats about their parentage was not the way to ensure their loyalty to ThunderClan. Realizing that Graystripe was still waiting patiently beside him, he mewed. Okay, tell me what's on your mind. It's my kids, Graystripe confessed. Ever since the gathering, I can't get them out of my mind. Mistyfoot and Stonefur weren't there, so I couldn't ask them for news, but now that Tigerstar has essentially taken over RiverClan, I'm sure my kids are in danger. Firestar took a bite of Vol and chewed thoughtfully. I don't see why they should be at risk more than any other cat, he replied, swallowing his mouthful. Tigerstar will want to look after all the apprentices to guarantee a strong fighting force. Graystripe didn't look reassured. But Tigerstar knows who their father is, he pointed out. He hates me, and I'm worried that I'll take it out on Featherpaw and Stormpaw. Firestar realized that Graystripe had a fair point about Tigerstar's hostility. What would you like to do? Graystripe blinked nervously. I want you to come with me across the river and bring them back to ThunderClan. Firestar stared at his friend. Are you completely mouse-brained? You're asking your clan leader to stroll into RiverClan territory and steal a couple of apprentices? Graystripe scraped his forepaw on the ground. Well, if you put it like that, how else would you put it? Firestar tried to control his shock, but Graystripe's suggestion was too close to Broken Tail's old crime of stealing kits. If Firestar agreed and RiverClan found out about it, they would be justified in attacking ThunderClan. And with ShadowClan to help them, that was a risk Firestar couldn't take. I knew you wouldn't listen. Graystripe turned and began to retreat, his tail drooping. I am listening. Graystripe, come back and let's think about this. As Graystripe stopped, Firestar went on. You don't know that Featherpaw and Stormpaw are in danger. And they're apprentices now, not kits. They have the right to decide their own future. What if they want to stay in RiverClan? I know. Graystripe sounded despairing. Don't worry, Firestar. I understand there's nothing you can do to help. I didn't say that. Against all his better judgment, Firestar knew he couldn't stand by and do nothing to help his friend. Graystripe pricked his ears, half hopeful, as Firestar went on. Suppose we go over there quietly, just the two of us, and check on them? If they're okay, then you won't need to worry anymore. If not, I'll tell them there's a place for them in ThunderClan, if that's what they choose. Graystripe's yellow eyes had begun to glow as Firestar spoke. That's great, he meowed. Thanks, Firestar. Can we go now? If you like. Let me finish this Vol first. You find Whitestorm and tell him he's in charge of the camp. But don't tell him where we're going, he added quickly. Graystripe bounded off to the warrior's den while Firestar swallowed the last few gulps of Vol and swiped his tongue over his mouth. By the time he had finished, Graystripe had reappeared, and the two friends headed for the mouth of the gorse tunnel. Reaching it, however, they stopped short as a familiar black shape slipped into the clearing. Ravenpaw! Firestar exclaimed happily. It's good to see you. It's good to see you, Ravenpaw responded, touching noses and greeting with Firestar and then with Graystripe. Graystripe, I haven't seen you in moons. How are you? I'm fine. It's easy to see you're doing well, he added, eyeing Ravenpaw's glossy black pelt. I came to pay my respects to Bluestar, Ravenpaw explained. You remember, Firestar, you said I could. Yes, of course. Firestar glanced at Graystripe, whose paws were working urgently in his haste to be off. Ravenpaw, can you go and find Cinderpelt? She'll show you the place where Bluestar is buried. Graystripe and I are just off on a mission. That sounds like the old days, meowed Ravenpaw, half enviously. What is it this time? We're going over to RiverClan to check on my kids, Graystripe told him in a rush. I'm worried about them now that Tigerstar is taking over. Ravenpaw's shocked look reminded Firestar that he knew nothing of the recent developments in the forest. Rapidly, he told the black cat what Tigerstar had announced at the last gathering. But that's a disaster, Ravenpaw hissed when he had finished. Is there anything I can do to help? I could come with you. His eyes were gleaming. Firestar guessed Ravenpaw was excited by the prospect of adventure. How different he was now from the nervous apprentice he had once been, bullied by his fierce mentor Tigerclaw. All right, he meowed, trusting his instincts that it would be good to have Ravenpaw with them. We'll be glad to have you. The Three Stooges are back together! Yay! Old memories of the three adventuring together flashed through his mind, but he knows because of his responsibilities as leader that could be no more. It was sunset by the time they reached the river. They stop and hide at the stepping stones. Firestar watches as a patrol mixed with RiverClan and ShadowClan passes by. Once they pass, he waves them across the stones. As they reach the far bank, Firestar hides in the ferns as the patrol's scent fades. Quote, treading softly, he made his way upriver toward the RiverClan camp. Graystripe and Ravenpaw followed, silent as shadows. Suddenly a new scent drifted on the breeze. Firestar paused, his whiskers twitching. His eyes widened as he recognized the reek of carrion, crow food that had rotted for days until its foul stench poisoned the air. Ugh, what's that? Growled Ravenpaw, forgetting the need for silence. Firestar swallowed the bile that rose into his throat. I don't know. I'd say it was a foxhole, but there's no scent of fox. It stinks, whatever it is, Graystripe muttered. Come on, Firestar, we need to keep going before some cat catches us. No, Firestar meowed. I know you're worried about your kits, Graystripe, but this is too strange. We have to investigate. A few tailings ahead, a tiny stream flowed sluggishly into the main river. Firestar turned to follow it through more reeds. The stench grew stronger, and beneath the smell of crow food, he began to pick up the scent of many cats, a mixture of ShadowClan and RiverClan like the patrol. He halted and signaled for his friends to do the same as he began to make out noises from somewhere ahead, movement in the reeds, and the voices of cats mingling together. "What is this?" Greystripe whispered. "We're nowhere near the camp." Firestar flicked the tip of his tail for silence. At least the stench would mask their ThunderClan scent and make it easier for them to stay hidden. More cautiously than ever, Firestar crept on again until the reeds began to thin out and he came to the edge of a clearing. Flattening himself against the damp ground, he crawled as far forward as he dared and looked out. At once, he had to clamp his teeth hard to keep back a yowl of shock and anger. The stream ran along one side of the clearing, its near-stagnant waters clogged by the remains of fresh kill carelessly flung there and left to rot. Cats crouched on the bank, tearing at prey. But that was not what had roused Firestar's fury. Opposite his hiding place, on the far side of the clearing, was a vast hill of bones. They gleamed like stripped branches in the last of the watery daylight. Some tiny shrew bones, hardly bigger than teeth. Others as big as the leg bone of a fox or a badger. "Oh my god, it's like in his vision." Icy trembling seized Firestar's body. For a heartbeat, he thought he was back in his dream at Four Trees. He remembered the blood that had come oozing out of that hill of bones and longed to flee in terror. But this was far worse than the dream, because Firestar knew that it was happening now, in the real world. And crouched on top of the pile, his fur black against the sun-bleached remains, was Tigerstar, leader of the new united clan. Firestar forced himself to stay hidden. He had to find out what Tigerstar was doing. Greystripe and Ravenpaw crept forward to crouch beside him. Ravenpaw's fur bristled, and Greystripe looked as if he were going to be sick. After the first shock ebbed, Firestar examined the scene more closely. The hill was made up of only prey bones, not mixed with cat bones like the one in his dream. On one side of it stood the ShadowClan deputy, Blackfoot. On the other side was Leopardstar. Her gaze flicked nervously back and forth across the clearing. Firestar wondered if she regretted what had happened to her clan, and he guessed that her ambition to make her clan strong had blinded her to Tigerstar's real nature. But whatever the former RiverClan leader felt, it was too late for her to go back now. "I can't see my kids," Greystripe whispered, a breath of sound close to Firestar's ear. Mistyfoot and Stonefur weren't there either, Firestar realized. In fact, most of the cats in the clearing came from ShadowClan, though he spotted the RiverClan warriors Mudfur and Heavystep. There was no sign of either medicine cat, and Firestar wondered if that was significant. Ain't Mudfur the RiverClan medicine cat? Hold on. Yeah, Mudfur's the medicine cat, so that must be a mistake. So, Mudfur is not there. That was just a error. He was still watching, too stunned to know what to do next, when Tigerstar rose to his paws. A few small bones rattled down the side of the hill. The dark tabby's eyes blazed in the fading light as he let out a triumphant yowl. "Cats of TigerClan, gather here around the Bone Hill for a clan meeting." Immediately, the cats in the clearing approached the hill, crouching low in respect. Others appeared from the reeds. "You must have built that hill to look like the High Rock," Ravenpaw murmured, "so we can look down on his clan." The dark tabby waited until his warriors were all in place, and then announced, "It is time for the trial to begin. Fetch the prisoners." Firestar exchanged a bewildered look with Greystripe. Where had Tigerstar found prisoners? Had he already mounted an attack on WindClan? At Tigerstar's order, a ShadowClan warrior, Jaggedtooth, who had been one of Broken Tail's rogues, vanished into the reeds. He returned a few moments later, dragging another cat with him. At first, Firestar did not recognize the skinny gray warrior, his fur unkempt and one ear shredded and bleeding. Then, as Jaggedtooth pushed him into the circle of cats beneath the Bone Hill, Firestar realized it was Stonefur. Firestar felt Greystripe stiffen beside him, and put out a warning paw for his friend not to give them away. Greystripe's ears twitched, but he stayed still and silent, watching. The reeds parted again. This time Firestar knew at once the cat who stepped into the clearing, his fur sleek and his head raised proudly. It was Darkstripe. "Traitor!" Firestar thought, his belly clenching in anger. More movement in the reeds heralded the arrival of another ShadowClan warrior who was shepherding two smaller cats, one a silver-gray tabby, and the other with thick gray fur. They were as thin as Stonefur, their steps unsteady as they staggered into the clearing. Huddling together in the shadow of the Bone Hill, they looked around them with wide, scared eyes. An icy chill crept Firestar's muscles. The two young cats were Greystripe's kits, Featherpaw and Stormpaw. Oh no, I think I see what's happening. That's the end of chapter 14, and we're just going to get right into chapter 15. Quote, Greystripe growled deep in his throat and gathered himself to spring. "No," Firestar gasped, leaping on his friend before he could leave the shadow of the reeds. "If Tigerstar sees us, we're crow food." On Greystripe's other side, Ravenpaw grabbed him by one shoulder. "Firestar's right," he hissed. "What chance would we have against all these cats?" Greystripe writhed desperately as if he hadn't heard. "Let me go," he snarled. "I'll flay that piece of foxdung. I'll rip his heart out." "No!" Firestar repeated in an agonized whisper. "We'll be slaughtered if we show ourselves now. We won't leave your kits, Greystripe. I promise we won't, but we've got to wait for the right moment to rescue them." Graystripe went on struggling for a moment longer, then subsided with a grunt of agreement. Firestar let him go, nodding to Ravenpaw to do the same. "Listen," he murmured. "Let's find out what's going on." While they had been holding Graystripe down, Tigerstar had begun to speak, his voice drowning the noise of their scuffle among the reeds. "Cats of TigerClan," he began. "You all know the hardships that we have to face. The cold of Leafbear threatens us. Two Legs threaten us. The other two clans in the forest, who have not yet realized the wisdom of joining with TigerClan, are a threat to us." Firestar's tail tip twitched in anger, and he flashed a look at Graystripe. Tigerstar was the threat. All the ThunderClan and WindClan wanted was to get on with their lives in peace, according to the ancient traditions of StarClan and the Warrior Code. But Graystripe's burning gaze was fixed on his two kits, cowering at the base of the Bone Hill. He was unaware of Firestar's glance. "Surrounded as we are by enemies," Tigerstar went on, "we must be sure of the loyalty of our own warriors. There is no room in TigerClan for the half-hearted. No room for cats who might waver in battle, or worse still, turn on their own clanmates. TigerClan will not tolerate traitors." Except the traitor who leads it, Firestar thought. Or Darkstripe, who would have watched his own clan be devoured by dogs. The cats in the clearing broke out into yowls of agreement. Tigerstar allowed the clamor to continue for a moment before signaling with his tail for silence. The noise died, and he began to speak again. "Especially, we will not tolerate the abomination of half-clan cats. No loyal warrior would ever take a mate from another clan, diluting the pure blood that our warrior ancestors decreed for us. Bluestar and Graystripe of ThunderClan both flouted the warrior code when they took mates from RiverClan. The kits of such a union, like the ones you see in front of you now, can never be trusted." Oh, that's not... So he's actually going full Hitler mode. He's actually Hitler. I know I said Broken Star was Hitler. No, Tigerstar is Hitler. He paused, and his deputy Blackfoot yelled out, "Filth! Filth!" Darkstripe took up the cry, and a chorus of yowls and screeches echoed his words. This time Tigerstar let them fall quiet in their own time, gazing out over the cats below him with a look of calm satisfaction. He and Blackfoot must have rehearsed all this, Firestar realized in horror. He noticed that it was the ShadowClan warriors who yowled the loudest. The RiverClan cats joined in less enthusiastically. Firestar guessed they might not all fully agree with the ShadowClan leader, but they did not dare stay silent. The two half-clan apprentices flattened themselves close to the ground, as if they were afraid of being swept away in the gale of the clan's fury. Stonefur crouched over them as if he could protect them, gazing around with defiance in his eyes. "Where is Mistyfoot?" Firestar wondered. "Tigerstar knows she's half-clan too. What has he done with her?" "I hope she's not already dead." Tigerstar spoke again. "Half-clan cats have been tolerated until now, but the time for tolerance has passed. There is no place in TigerClan for warriors who owe allegiance to two clans. How can we trust them not to betray our secrets, or even turn on us and kill us? Could we expect StarClan to fight on our side if we allow those who are not pure in heart and blood to walk freely among us?" "No!" Darkstripe screeched, flexing his claws and lashing his tail from side to side. "No, my friends. We must get rid of the abominations in our midst. Then our clan will be clean again, and we can be sure of the favor of StarClan." Stonefur sprang to his paws. He was so weak that he stumbled and almost fell, but he managed to stay upright and face Tigerstar. "No cat has ever questioned my loyalty," he snarled. "Come down here and tell me to my face that I'm a traitor." Firestar wanted to wail aloud at the blue-gray warrior's hopeless courage. Tigerstar could have swatted him aside with one paw, and yet Stonefur still remained defiant. "Mistyfoot and I never even knew that Bluestar was our mother until a couple of moons ago," Stonefur insisted. "We have been loyal RiverClan warriors all our lives. Let any cat who thinks different come out here and prove it." Tigerstar angrily swept his tail toward Leopardstar. "You showed poor judgment when you chose this cat as your deputy," he growled. "RiverClan is choked by the weeds of treachery, and we must root them out." To Firestar's dismay, Leopardstar bowed her head. The gesture showed just how far Tigerstar's power extended, but the once formidable RiverClan leader was unable or unwilling to protect her own deputy. "Girl, stand up! Stand up!" Yet the Dark Tabby's words gave Firestar hope. It sounded as if Tigerstar was about to banish Stonefur and the two apprentices. If he did, then Firestar and his friends could wait for them at the border, ready to take them back to ThunderClan, where they would be safe. When Tigerstar spoke again, his voice was measured and cold. "Stonefur, I will give you a chance to show your loyalty to TigerClan. Kill these two half-clan apprentices." An eerie silence spread through the clearing, broken only by Graystripe's gasp of outrage. Luckily, the TigerClan warriors were so intent on the scene in front of them that no cat heard him. "Firestar!" Graystripe whispered. "We must do something!" His claws dug into the ground and his muscles bunched, ready to spring, yet his eyes were fixed on Firestar as if he would not attack without his leader's order. Ravenpaw's eyes, bright with distress, turned to Firestar. "We can't just watch them die!" Firestar felt his fur prickling with tension. He knew he could not stay crouching here in hiding while Graystripe's kits were slaughtered a few fox lengths away. If all else failed, he was ready to give up his life in a battle to save them. "Wait just a moment," he murmured. "Let's see what Stonefur does." The blue-gray warrior returned to face LeopardStar. "I take orders from you," he growled. "You must know this is wrong. What do you want me to do?" For a heartbeat, LeopardStar looked uncertain, and again Firestar began to hope that she would take a stand against Tigerstar and stop the destruction of her clan. But he had underestimated the strength of her ambition, and her misguided faith that Tigerstar offered an invincible future. "These are difficult times," she meowed at last. "As we fight for survival, we must be able to count on every one of our clanmates. There is no room for divided loyalties. Do as Tigerstar tells you." Stonefur held her gaze for a moment more, a moment that to Firestar seemed to last for several moons. Then he faced the two apprentices, and they shrank away from him, their eyes glazed with terror. Stormpaw gave his sister a comforting lick. "We'll fight him," he promised. "I won't let him kill us." Brave words, Firestar thought desperately. Stonefur was a skilled, experienced warrior, and even in his weakened state, he was a formidable threat to two half-trained apprentices, who had obviously been ill-treated and imprisoned as well. The RiverClan warrior gave a little nod to Stormpaw, just like any mentor approving of his apprentice's courage. Then he turned to look up at Tigerstar again. "You'll have to kill me first, Tigerstar," he spat. Narrowing his eyes, Tigerstar flicked his tail at Darkstripe. "Very well, kill him," he ordered. The black-striped warrior crouched low, every hair on his pelt quivering with joy that Tigerstar had given him a chance to prove his loyalty to his new clan. With a grunt of effort, he hurled himself at Stonefur. Pity and fear throbbed through Firestar. He could see only one end to the fight. The blue-gray warrior was so weak that he would be no match for Darkstripe. Firestar wanted to leap into the clearing and fight on Stonefur's side, but he knew it would be suicidal in the presence of so many enemy cats. He knew that he had to hold back in the hope, however slight, of saving the apprentices. Firestar had scarcely known an ordeal worse than the one he faced now, remaining hidden while his friend was slaughtered. Yet Stonefur's skills had not deserted him. Quick as lightning, he dropped backwards so that instead of landing on his shoulders, Darkstripe was faced with all four paws, claws extended to rip at his fur. Firestar felt his throat tighten. He remembered a day during his apprenticeship when Stonefur's mother, Bluestar, had taught him that very move. "Bluestar, if you can see this, help him now," he begged. The two warriors were a clawing, screeching knot of fur on the floor of the clearing. The rest of the cats scrambled backward to give them space, still keeping the same eerie silence. They were so intent on the battle, Firestar wondered for a moment if this might be the best time to rescue the apprentices. But Tigerstar was still crouched on top of the bone hill, with a clear view of the whole clearing, and he would easily see them coming. Stonefur had fastened his teeth into Darkstripe's scruff and was trying to shake the Dark Warrior, but Darkstripe's greater size and strength were too much. He lost his grip, and the two warriors sprang apart, breathing hard. Blood was trickling from a scratch above Darkstripe's left eye, and clumps of fur were missing from his flank. Stonefur's pelt was even more ragged, and as he shook one forepaw, spots of blood spattered on the ground. "Get a move on, Darkstripe," Blackfoot jeered. "You're fighting like a kitty pet." That's the worst thing he could have said. With a hiss of fury, Darkstripe launched another attack, but Stonefur was ready for him again. Slipping to one side, he raked his claws down Darkstripe's side, and followed up with a blow to his back leg as the Dark Warrior crashed past him. Stonefur staggered from the force of the impact, but by the time Darkstripe regained his paws, he had recovered. This time, the RiverClan warrior went on the attack, bowling Darkstripe over and fastening teeth and claws in his neck. Firestar heard Graystripe's intake of breath. His yellow eyes were blazing. On his other side, Ravenpaw was sinking his unsheathed claws into the ground. Firestar felt hope burn in his belly. Was it possible that Stonefur could win? But Tigerstar had no intention of letting Stonefur escape. As Darkstripe struggled vainly to break free, the massive tabby flicked his ears at Blackfoot. "Finish it," he ordered. The Shadowclan deputy flung himself into the battle. He bit Stonefur in the shoulder and dragged him off Darkstripe, ducking to avoid his flailing paws. Darkstripe sprang on Stonefur to hold his hindquarters down, while Blackfoot scored his claws across the blue-gray warrior's throat. Stonefur let out a gurgling cry that was cut short. Both Tigerclan cats released him and stood back. Stonefur's body convulsed as blood welled from his throat. A thin wailing noise went up from the watching cats, strengthening into a cry of triumph. Even LeopardStar, after a brief hesitation, joined in. The two apprentices were the only cats to remain silent, their terrified eyes fixed on the warrior who had died to save them. Firestar could only stare in horror as Stonefur went limp, and the last breath left his body. It's the end of chapter 15, and that's where we're going to stop for today. Dear StarClan, poor Stonefur, he didn't deserve to die. Yeah, wow, this is bad. This is really bad. Tigerstar is doing ethnic cleansing now. Like, he's actually Hitler. The real cat Hitler emerges. Because, I mean, I think Broken Star was just evil, but Tigerstar is worse. He is Hitler. He's Hitler and Trump combined. Anyway, well, that's it for this episode. I hope you guys are enjoying your summer. Join me next week, same time, same place, as we see if they can rescue Stormpaw and Featherpaw from this horrible trial. If you like the podcast, make sure to rate me 5 stars on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe, please. Follow my socials in the descriptions. That's where you can get direct updates from the podcast, like when new episodes are out, and if episodes are delayed, that's where you'll be able to find that information. And yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me, and may StarClan light your path.